What's up, everybody? I'm Digi Dustin, and I want to talk to you about how awesome this game is and how it's bursting right out of the gate with some of the best card designs and synergy between decks that I've seen in a while. But I am going to contain my hype for just a little bit so I can present the cards that have been revealed for set 2, and after this, hopefully I will be able to get up a video that discusses the crazy synergy between the colors that we're seeing going on right now. Alright, without further ado, let's dive right in. So, we see Gallantmon's line here. Agumon, who has the Evo Source ability that if your opponent has 5 cards in their trash, the Digimon will get 1000 DP. Wargrowlmon, who has the same Evo Source ability, but also when you Digivolve into him, if you have a red tamer, you destroy one of your opponent's Digimon with 3000 or less DP. And Gallantmon, who on evolution, if you have a red tamer, will destroy one of your opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP or less, but also when he attacks, for every 10 cards in your opponent's trash, discard one of your opponent's security. Now, this is pretty crazy, so if you evolve through the proper lines into him, he'll have at least 13,000 DP going on. Most of the colors revealed all revolve around tamers, so it's likely we'll be seeing tamers this set who are more conducive to these abilities. So possibly an on-rest mill 2 from your opponent's deck, or destroy. It would be really powerful to see a red tamer that just destroys your opponent's Digimon regardless of DP. It would be very hard to put rookies out against that, so it'll likely be a mill, but this when attacking ability is pretty interesting because it's not just additional damage. This straight burn negates the chances of your opponent seeing options or even tamers. When you just discard security, even if they had a tamer, it won't activate now because it's not being revealed. It's not a security check, it's just going straight from the security into the trash. So that's pretty interesting. Moving on to Veedramon's line. Now, I've been wanting to see Veedramon and his line for a while now, ever since we saw the manga Taichi promo, who revolves around Veedramon. He'll become much stronger now, but this Veedramon doesn't have any Evo Source abilities, so it's hard to say whether it'll be used or not. However, during your turn, if you have a blue tamer, it gains jamming, and any Digimon with jamming is already pretty decent. I'm not really sure why we'd use it over Frigimon even, who has 1 less cost for a straight play, but 1000 less DP, since jamming kind of ignores the need for DP. But moving on to Arrow Veedramon, his Evo Source ability is when the Digimon becomes active during your main phase, it gains jamming, and when you Digivolve into Arrow Veedramon for a cost of 3, if you have a blue tamer, one of your other Digimon become active. Now this is interesting because if we look over here at Full Force Veedramon, once per turn, if this Digimon becomes active during your main phase, you get 1 memory, and if your blue tamer is rested, this Digimon becomes active. So we see this cool little synergy going on, that if your blue tamer becomes rested, Full Force becomes active, and he gains jamming, but you also get 1 memory. So if you have the blue tamer that starts your turn with 3 memory, suddenly you're up to 4 memory, he attacks twice, then you can Digivolve into Arrow Veedramon without passing your turn, and still having a little memory left over, netting you 3 attacks with just Full Force Veedramon. If you can find a way to throw a security on him, wonderful. And then we see the yellow Agumon line leading into Shinegreymon. When you attack, if you have 3 or more yellow tamers, draw 1 as an Evo Source ability. And Greymon's Evo Source is on attack. If you have 3 or more yellow tamers, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 2k. And finally, we have Shinegreymon, which gets 1k for every tamer you have, not just yellow tamers. But also, when you Digivolve into him, you can rest all of your yellow tamers, and for every yellow tamer you rested, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 4k. Now, this is pretty interesting. I don't want to go into it, how it directly affects purple right now. However, it has some interesting interactions going on there. And also, I have a strong feeling we will see Digimon from the Data Squad series showing up here, because their entire gimmick revolves around them being able to fight the Digimon themselves. So it wouldn't be too far-fetched to believe that we see Yellow Tamer that reduces Digimon's DP on their own. So perhaps minus 1,000 per rest of a Tamer. For green, we have a really interesting Digimon, Agumon, and no specific tamer abilities going on here. However, he has the main ability that when you would Digivolve into him, you can reduce that cost to 2, making him free by resting another Digimon. And the same thing can be said of the level 5 Agumon, who can reduce his cost to free, who also comes with the Evo Source ability that when you attack, you can play a level 3 Digimon from your hand. And finally, we have the level 6 that can reduce his cost to 2, and for every rested Digimon you have, you get security attack +1. Now, this is a really useful line for green as a whole. We could even end up skipping the level 6 entirely. I'm not saying we will. He might be the go-to for green. However, green's current problem right now is that all of their Digimon leading up to level 6 aren't that useful. So if we're able to just bypass them entirely and make their cost free through this line, then we can get our powerful level 6s out without much worry. Then we have black, starting with Caramon. During your has the Evo Source, and your turn, if you play another Digimon that has the same name as this Digimon, draw +1. This is interesting because this doesn't actually work with any of the other black cards we've seen, so chances are we're going to see a secondary gimmick from black that allows you to clone your Digimon somehow. It'll be interesting to see how that ends up working. It'll likely be some form of search ability though, such as just thinking of Infirmon in the later stages of Caramon as a whole. It'll probably be like pay 3 memory, summon him, or as a powerful level 6, perhaps when you perhaps he'll have blocker, which is a pretty big ability within black that we've seen so far, and every time you block you'll be able to play another copy of it, which would trigger the draw ability, and then even if it died while blocking, you'd have another one to block with, which could create a loop of sorts. And then from the more conducive abilities that we've seen, we start with Agumon, which has Reboot, which is really powerful for blockers, because with this as an Evo Source, your blockers can now attack, and then when your opponent's turn starts, they become active, so they can still block. This is also powerful for non-blockers as well, because then they can attack and you don't have to worry about them being rested and targetable. Andromon is just a level 5 blocker, 7 cost, 3 Evo, 7,000 DP. It's hard to say whether we'll see this in other colors or not. And finally, we have our first level 6 blocker as well in Shinegreymon, 12 cost, 4 Evo. However, he also has a on-play ability which encourages people to skip evolving into their level 6s. This isn't something we've seen yet. However, it is also in purple, but when he's played, 2 of your opponents de-digivolve 2. This is pretty useful as against red and blue who can turn into Omnimon. Omnimon doesn't have a lot of counters, so being able to just throw down a Shinegreymon, turn that Omnimon back to an ultimate, and then be able to block that ultimate's attack and possibly not have to deal with an Omnimon for the rest of the game is extremely useful. Well worth the 12 cost. And for Black's Tamer, we have Tai Kamiya. This is the Memory 3 Tamer that all of the other colors have gotten so far, but it also, during your opponent's turn, gives all of your black Digimon 1000 DP, which is obviously pretty useful as they're shaping up to be an extremely defensive color, similar to green. So if you manage to get out 3 of these, let's say, you'd have a 14k blocker, which would be extremely hard to get over, and I'm sure there will be other Digimon and option cards that make that even higher. For purple, we see Impmon, who is conducive to but not the same as Devoman and Piedmon. When Impmon's destroyed, discard 3 cards from the top of your deck. This is fairly important as Impmon is also the Digimon that will digivolve into Beelzemon, who is the secret rare for this set. And going off of that, I have a pretty strong feeling that Beelzemon is also going to be related to discard. There's a lot of ways we could see that playing out. Mill deck or self-mill decks are pretty big within other card games, and I could easily see Beelzemon, who's I believe it's the double barrel attack. Anyway, I could easily see him on attack, mill 5 cards to restand once or twice per turn, and if you also give him Pierce, he'd be able to shred through your opponent's Digimon and just try to end the game as quickly as possible before you deck out because of it. Then we have Devoman, who has the keyword Vengeance, although I've seen it called a few different things around, such as Companion, but essentially it's an on-death Bane, Death Touch, what have you, that when he's destroyed in battle, he drags the other Digimon down with him. It's not just a main ability, but also a Evo source ability, so anything he turns into will have it, but he also has it. Piedmon also comes with Vengeance, but like Shinegreymon, he also has the When Played ability, and his is that you are able to play 2 level 4 or less purple Digimon from your trash without paying the cost. Their When Played effects don't activate. I'm a little sad about this part, the When Played effects not activating, because it would have been really cool to, say, get 2 level 4 Digimon who, when played, summon a level 3 from the trash to just kind of flood the field really quickly, but balancing is important. So, with this, we'll likely end up seeing him summon Digimon similar to Devoman, and we'll just have a field full of this Vengeance ability. And it's important to note that they have smaller DP numbers than other Digimon of similar cost with similar abilities. And there's a pretty obvious reason for this. Devoman can just attack security, and if the opponent wants to block and kill him, they can, but they'll lose their blocker in the process. This is something that other colors can't really say. And just a future note for hopefully an upcoming video, that it is pretty interesting that they're choosing numbers like 4,000 and 10,000, which directly correlate to a lot of numbers we see in Yellow's DP reduction abilities. And for their tamer, we see Matt Ishida, who is their 3 memory tamer, and when he's played, you can return 1 purple option or Digimon card from your trash to your hand. This coincides with the thought that Impmon will be far from their only self-milling card. They're probably going to go through their deck and then have cards to bring them to the field like Piedmon, or to your hand like Mad. I actually strongly believe that all of the colors need stronger search, and they're probably going to do it all in their own way. We're just seeing it faster in purple at the moment from the self-mill. Green was pretty blatant about their method as well, which is searching for higher evolution abilities. We saw that in the previous set. And finally, we saw Millenniumon, a level 7 that coincides with purple and black. A lot of people are freaking out about him. I don't think he's as scary as Omnimon, but he is extremely good. When you Digivolve into him, you can return one of your opponent's Digimon to the bottom of their deck, and all of the evolution sources are discarded. And when he's destroyed, as long as you have an evolution source on him, then you can play him from your trash without paying the cost. So he essentially gets to live twice, and when you evolve into him the first time, he gets rid of one of your opponent's Digimon. So this is once again, like Shinegreymon, a decent answer to cards like Omnimon or Really Big Threat. And then he's just a big body. He doesn't have his own like security attack +1 or anything like that, but it's still pretty decent pressure, pretty hard to get rid of him, and when you do, he'll come back. So he's still a pretty threatening level 7. And one thing I've seen other people mention about him is that both the black and purple level 6s we've seen so far have on-play abilities versus evolving up into them. So when you have Millenniumon in your hand and you're ready to bring him out next turn, you can just straight play either Piedmon or Shinegreymon and get a lot of value out of their on-play abilities, and next turn you'll be set up to play Millenniumon. And at least with Shinegreymon, this isn't even remotely that dangerous of a strategy, because most of the threats will be turned into non-threats, and you'll have a very powerful blocker setup. And then next turn, even if you don't get a lot of attacks in, it's still fine, because you're going to bottom deck your opponent's most threatening creature once again. While in purple, you'll definitely want to get a lot of play before you end up using your memory if you go with this strategy, because Vengeance is nice, but until we have a method of throwing blocker onto your Digimon, which likely will be added to purple, or at least will come from black, and we'll see a lot of mixed decks, because throwing blocker onto Vengeance will be crazy powerful. Anyway, that's all from this video. I will hopefully be putting up a video later, though, that shows the crazy synergy that I'm seeing between these colors, not necessarily for building a deck, but just for facing each other, and why that's so good and why this game is just blowing me away within its first 2 sets. Alright, until next time guys, stay wholesome.